The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of Bella's bistro, casting a golden glow over the wooden tables and the customers who sat at them. In the middle of it all moved Lily Alvarez, carrying 3 plates balanced expertly along her arm, weaving between tables with the grace of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "Here we go," she said, with a warm smile as she set down a steaming plate of pasta in front of an elderly woman. "Mushroom ravioli for you, the chicken parmesan for your husband, and height." She turned to place the last plate in front of a young man typing furiously on his laptop. "The special for you, sir." The young man barely looked up, but the elderly couple beamed at her. "Thank you, dear," the woman said. "You always remember exactly who ordered what." "I don't know how you do it," Lily laughed softly. "Just part of the job," she said, though in truth she prided herself on these small details. In the 3 years she'd worked at Bella's, she'd learned that remembering the little things made people feel seen. "Can I get you folks anything else?" she asked, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. When they shook their heads, she moved on to her next table, her comfortable black shoes padding quietly across the worn wooden floor. The dinner rush was just beginning, and Lily moved through it with the calm efficiency that had made her one of the bistro's most requested servers. Regular customers often asked to be seated in her section, not just because she rarely mixed up orders, but because there was something soothing about her presence, a quiet dignity that seemed at odds with the chaos of restaurant work. What none of them knew. Not the college students who came in for cheap pasta, not the business people grabbing a quick lunch, not even Paolo, the owner who had hired her on the spot 3 years ago, was that Lily Alvarez had once been destined for a very different life. 6 hours earlier, before she'd put on her black serving uniform and tied her hair back, Lily had been sitting in front of an old upright piano in her small apartment, her fingers flying over the keys as she played a piece by Chopin that had once been as familiar to her as breathing. The piano was the one luxury in her otherwise sparse living space, a second-hand instrument she'd found on an online marketplace, its tone slightly uneven but still rich enough to make her heart ache when she played. Now, as she refilled water glasses and took orders for tiramisu, no one would have guessed that those same hands that balanced trays and wrote down orders had once been groomed to grace the stages of concert halls. The calluses on her fingertips told 2 stories, one of music sheets and practice rooms, the other of hot plates and dish soap. "Lily, table 6 needs their check," called Miguel, another server who was juggling a tray of drinks. "On it," she replied, already pulling her notepad from her apron pocket. As the evening progressed and the restaurant filled with the hum of conversation and the clink of silverware, Lily found herself in the rhythm that had become her life. Take orders, deliver food, clear plates, repeat. It was predictable work, stable in a way that her former life had not been, and she had made her peace with it. Mostly, sometimes in quiet moments between tables, her mind would drift back to the conservatory, the prestigious music school she'd left in her 3rd year when her father's sudden illness had drained her family's savings and left them struggling to keep their small house. She'd come home to help, taking the first job she could find. Her father had recovered, but the medical bills had changed everything. Her parents had insisted she return to school, but the practical side of Lily, the one that had watched her mother cry over unpaid bills, knew that she couldn't burden them further. "You're a million miles away," Paolo said, startling her as she stood at the computer, entering an order. Lily blinked, coming back to the present. "Sorry, just thinking about the specials," she lied smoothly. Paolo, a short man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, studied her face. "You've been my best waitress for 3 years, but sometimes I think you belong somewhere else." Something tightened in Lily's chest. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," he said, wiping his hands on his apron. "Just that you have how do you say it? A depth to you. Like there's more beneath the surface." Before she could respond, the kitchen bell rang, signaling that an order was ready. Saved by the bell, quite literally, Lily gave Paolo a quick smile and hurried away. The rest of her shift passed in the familiar blur of faces and food, tips collected and tables cleared. By 10 o'clock, the last customers were paying their bills, and Lily was mentally calculating how much she'd made that night. Enough to cover rent, she thought, plus a little extra for the piano tuner who was coming next week. "Good night, Paolo," she called as she hung up her apron. "See you tomorrow. Rest well." "Lily," he replied from where he was counting the register. The night air was cool against her face as she walked the 6 blocks to her apartment, her steps quick and purposeful. The city around her was still alive with weekend energy. People spilling out of bars, cars honking, music drifting from open windows. But Lily was focused on getting home. Not because she was tired, though her feet ached from standing all day, but because her piano was waiting. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building with no elevator. By the time she unlocked her door, her legs were burning from the climb, but she didn't pause to rest. She dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes, and went straight to the piano that took up most of her small living room. This was her real life, these stolen hours between work and sleep. She sat on the bench, her posture automatically correcting itself, back straight, shoulders relaxed, wrists aligned. It was muscle memory, ingrained after years of lessons that had started when she was just 5 years old. Lily didn't need sheet music for what she was about to play. Her fingers found the opening notes of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, a piece she had been working on for weeks. It was ambitious beyond what she had mastered at school, but that was the point. If she couldn't move forward in her career, she could at least move forward in skill. The rich, complex sounds filled her apartment, probably seeping through the thin walls to her neighbors, but no one had ever complained. Perhaps they enjoyed the free concerts, or perhaps the elderly couple next door and the nurse who lived below her worked night shifts and weren't home to hear. As she played, Lily disappeared into the music. Her fingers stretched to reach the challenging intervals. Her body swayed with the changing dynamics. And for a few precious minutes, she wasn't a waitress who smelled faintly of garlic and pasta sauce. She was who she had been meant to be. A musician, an artist, a performer. The piece built to its thundering climax, and Lily closed her eyes, letting herself be carried away by the powerful chords that resonated through the small room. This was the feeling she chased every night, this sense of being fully alive, fully herself. The final notes hung in the air, and then there was silence, broken only by the distant sound of traffic and the hum of her refrigerator. Lily opened her eyes and let out a slow breath. Reality settled back around her like a familiar coat, a bit worn. Not quite what she would have chosen, but it fit her now. She played for another hour, moving from Rachmaninoff to Chopin to some simpler pieces she had written herself. By the time she finally closed the piano lid, it was past midnight, and her fingers were stiff with effort. Her nightly ritual complete, Lily moved around her apartment, getting ready for bed. There were pictures on her walls, a few of her family, one of her graduating class at high school where she'd been voted most likely to become famous, and one treasured photo of her at her last recital at the conservatory, taking a bow on stage, her face flushed with triumph. That had been 4 years ago. Sometimes it felt like a lifetime. As she brushed her teeth, Lily wondered, as she often did, what her classmates were doing now. Many would have graduated, some might be teaching, others auditioning for orchestras or working on solo careers. She followed a few on social media, but had gradually stopped checking their updates. It hurt too much to see them living the life she had planned for herself. She climbed into bed, setting her alarm for 7 a.m., early enough to practice for an hour before her lunch shift tomorrow. As tired as she was, she knew she would wake up eager to return to the piano. It was the one constant in her life, the one thing she had refused to give up completely. Someday, she whispered to herself, the same words she had whispered every night for 3 years. It wasn't even a complete thought. Someday what? Someday she would perform again? Someday she would go back to school? Someday she would be known for something more than remembering who ordered what at table 9? She didn't know. But the word itself was a comfort, a small flame of hope she kept alive despite everything. Someday. With that thought, Lily Alvarez, waitress by day and secret pianist by night, drifted off to sleep, her dreams full of concert halls and standing ovations that seemed as distant as the stars. The next morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through Lily's thin curtains. She woke before her alarm, her body used to the early rhythm of her days. For a few peaceful moments she lay still, listening to the sounds of the city coming alive outside her window. Car engines starting, voices calling, the distant wail of a siren. With a deep breath, she pushed herself out of bed and padded to the kitchen to start her coffee. While the pot gurgled and filled the small apartment with its rich scent, Lily went through her morning stretches, focusing especially on her wrists and fingers. A pianist's hands were precious tools, even if hers mostly carried plates these days. The coffee finished brewing just as she completed her routine. Cup in hand, she settled at the piano for her morning practice. These early hours were different from her night sessions, more disciplined, focused on technique rather than emotion. She worked through scales and exercises, her fingers gaining speed and agility as they warmed up. By the time she needed to get ready for work, Lily felt centered, the way she always did after practice. She showered quickly, pulled her hair into a neat ponytail and put on her work clothes: black pants, white button-up shirt, comfortable shoes. Nothing fancy, but she took pride in looking professional. The walk to Bella's bistro was pleasant in the mid-morning light. Lily greeted the florist, setting up buckets of bright flowers outside his shop, and waved to Mrs. Chen, who was sweeping the sidewalk in front of her bakery. These small connections were part of what made this neighborhood feel like home, even if it wasn't where she had planned to end up. Morning. "Lily," called Paolo as she entered through the back door of the restaurant. He was already prepping for lunch, the sleeves of his chef's coat rolled up to his elbows as he chopped vegetables with practiced speed. "Morning," she replied, tying on her apron. "Busy day ahead?" "2 big reservations for lunch," he said. "That professor is coming again. The one who always orders the fish and talks about music. He has to be seated in your section." Lily nodded, a small smile on her face. She knew exactly who Paolo meant. Dr. Thomas Henderson, a regular who came in once or twice a week, usually with sheet music or academic papers spread across his table as he ate. He taught at the music department of the local university and had a habit of humming classical pieces under his breath, sometimes not realizing he was doing it until Lily recognized the tune and named it. "He likes you," Paolo said with a wink. Lily rolled her eyes. "He's at least 65, Paolo." "Not like that," Paolo laughed, scooping chopped onions into a container. "He respects you. I've seen how you two talk about music." Lily felt a flutter of pride at that. Her conversations with Dr. Henderson were one of the few times she let her knowledge slip, allowing herself to be more than just a friendly face taking orders. The professor had noticed her expertise right away, his bushy eyebrows shooting up in surprise the first time she had correctly identified a difficult Bartók piece he was humming. "What can I say? I like classical music," had been her simple explanation, though the truth was far deeper. The lunch rush started promptly at 11:30, and Lily fell into her familiar routine, greeting customers, taking orders, delivering food with efficiency and a genuine smile. The restaurant filled quickly, the hum of conversation growing louder as more tables were occupied. Dr. Henderson arrived precisely at 12:15, as he always did on Tuesdays. Lily watched as the hostess led him to his usual corner table, noting that today he carried not just his usual leather satchel, but also what looked like a stack of colorful flyers. She gave him a few minutes to settle in before approaching. "Good afternoon, Dr. Henderson. The usual sparkling water to start?" He looked up, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "Yes, please, Lily. And I think I'll try the special today instead of my usual." Paolo mentioned something about sea bass. "Sea bass with a lemon caper sauce served with roasted potatoes and seasonal vegetables," she recited. "Excellent choice. I'll put that right in for you." As she turned to go, he cleared his throat. "Actually, Lily, if you have a moment, I have something that might interest you." Curious, she paused. The lunch rush was in full swing, but she could spare a minute. "Of course." Dr. Henderson handed her one of the flyers from his stack. It was printed on high-quality paper in rich blues and golds, with an image of a grand piano at the top. The university is hosting a charity recital next month to raise money for music education in underserved schools. Several faculty members and advanced students will be performing. Lily scanned the flyer, noting the date, time, and impressive venue, the university's main concert hall, a space she had once dreamed of playing in herself. "It's for a good cause," the professor continued, "and the program is quite impressive, if I do say so myself. Bach, Mozart, Chopin, Rachmaninoff." At the mention of Rachmaninoff, Lily's eyes snapped back to the flyer, finding the name in the program listing. Next to it was a blank space where a performer's name should have been. "You're missing someone for the Rachmaninoff," she noted. Pointing to the gap, Dr. Henderson sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. "Yes, that's actually why I brought these today. Olivia Watkins was scheduled to play the prelude in G minor, but she's broken her wrist in a bicycle accident. We're scrambling to find a replacement, but most of our advanced students are already committed to other pieces, and it's a challenging work. Lily's heart began to beat faster. Prelude in G minor, the very piece she had been practicing for weeks, the one she had played just last night. I don't suppose... Dr. Henderson looked at her with sudden intensity. You might know someone who could step in? Someone with serious training? The question hung in the air between them. Lily's mouth went dry. 3 years of hiding her past, of keeping her talent private like a secret shame, and now this direct invitation to step back into the world she'd left behind. She began, not knowing what she was about to say. Table 7 needs their check, Miguel called from across the restaurant, breaking the moment. Lily blinked, coming back to herself. I need to... Of course, Dr. Henderson nodded. We can talk when you're less busy. Keep the flyer. She tucked it into her apron pocket, her fingers trembling slightly, and hurried away to attend to her other customers. For the rest of her shift, the flyer seemed to burn against her leg, a constant reminder of the choice suddenly presented to her. During quiet moments, her mind raced. Could she do it? Perform in public again after all this time? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. She had kept up with her practice, yes, but practicing alone in a small apartment was worlds away from playing on a stage, in front of people who knew music, who would judge her ability. And yet, the piece was already under her fingers. She knew its every note, its every emotional shift. She had been playing it for herself, but maybe, just maybe, she could play it for others too. When Dr. Henderson finished his meal, Lily brought his check with uncharacteristic nervousness. The recital is still 3 weeks away, he said casually as he handed her his credit card. Plenty of time to prepare for whoever takes on the Rachmaninoff. Lily nodded, unable to find words. Tell me, Lily, he said, his voice gentle. Why does someone with your ear for music work in a restaurant? You've correctly identified every piece I've ever hummed, even the obscure ones. She met his gaze, feeling suddenly exposed. Life happens, she said simply. Plans change. Indeed they do, he agreed. But talent remains. I've taught music for 40 years, and I recognize passion when I see it. As she processed his card payment, Lily made a decision that surprised even herself. I used to play, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Piano. I studied at the conservatory for almost 3 years. Dr. Henderson's eyebrows shot up, but he didn't seem entirely surprised. And now? Now I have an old upright in my apartment that I play when I'm not here, she said, a small smile tugging at her lips despite her nervousness. Including Rachmaninoff's prelude in G minor. There was a moment of silence as the professor processed this information, his eyes widening. You can play the piece? The one we need for the recital? Lily nodded, hardly believing she was having this conversation. After years of keeping her musical life separate from her work life, the walls between them were suddenly crumbling. Would you... Dr. Henderson seemed almost as nervous as she felt. Would you consider auditioning to fill the spot in our program? No pressure, of course, but if you already know the piece. The practical side of Lily, the one that had gotten her through the past 3 years, immediately raised objections. What if she wasn't good enough anymore? What if she made a fool of herself? What if it only reopened old wounds, reminding her of what she'd lost? But another part of her, a part that had been quiet for too long, whispered, what if this is your chance? I could audition, she heard herself saying, the words coming out before she could stop them. I'm not promising anything, but I could try. The smile that spread across Dr. Henderson's face was worth the risk of those words. Wonderful. Could you come to my office at the university tomorrow? Say around 3? I can listen to you play and we can discuss the details. I have the lunch shift tomorrow, but I'm done by 2:30, Lily said, mentally rearranging her schedule, wondering if she could possibly be ready to play for someone as knowledgeable as Dr. Henderson by tomorrow. Perfect, he said, standing and gathering his things. I'll expect you then. The music building is on the east side of campus, the big brick one with the columns. My office is room 214. As he left, Lily stood rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by what had just happened. For the first time in 3 years, someone knew about her music. Not just knew, but was offering her a chance to step back into that world, even if just for one performance. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. When Paolo asked why she seemed distracted, she couldn't bring herself to tell him yet. This fragile possibility felt too new, too delicate to share. That night when she sat down at her piano, the Rachmaninoff took on new meaning. No longer was she playing just for herself. She was preparing for tomorrow, for an audience of one professor who might open a door she had thought forever closed. As the powerful notes filled her apartment, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the vague someday she whispered to herself each night, but something concrete and immediate. Tomorrow she would play for Dr. Henderson. And if all went well, in 3 weeks she might play for a real audience. The waitress who had hidden in plain sight was considering stepping into the spotlight, and the thought was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. Lily barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw herself sitting at a grand piano on a stage, hundreds of eyes watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake. Then the scene would shift, and she was back in her apartment staring at the ceiling, her heart racing. By the time her alarm went off, she had already been awake for an hour, mentally practicing the Rachmaninoff piece, her fingers twitching beneath her blanket as they traced imaginary notes. She rose with a mix of dread and excitement churning in her stomach. One step at a time, she told herself as she made coffee. Stronger than usual today. Just get through the audition first. She spent her morning practice focusing entirely on the prelude in G minor, playing it through twice, then working on the trickier passages. Her old upright piano, with its slightly uneven action and worn keys, was a far cry from the instruments she'd play at the university. Would she be able to adjust? As she walked to work, the usual sights and sounds of her neighborhood barely registered. Her mind was elsewhere, running through the music, feeling the shape of each phrase, the texture of each chord. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Paolo said as she tied on her apron. "Everything okay?" Lily forced a smile. "Just didn't sleep well. I'll be fine." "Coffee's fresh," he said, nodding toward the pot in the corner. "Have some before the customers start arriving." The lunch rush was mercifully busy, giving Lily little time to worry about her 3 p.m. audition. She moved from table to table, taking orders, delivering food, clearing plates, all on autopilot while her mind continued to play the Rachmaninoff on a loop. At one point, she nearly brought the wrong order to a table, catching herself just in time. Paolo raised an eyebrow at her but said nothing. By the time her shift ended, Lily's nerves were stretched thin. She changed quickly in the employee bathroom, swapping her work clothes for the simple dress and cardigan she had brought with her. She brushed her hair, applied a touch of lip gloss, and studied herself in the mirror. Would Dr. Henderson see a professional musician, or just a waitress trying to be something she wasn't? "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. "You've played this piece 100 times, but never for anyone who mattered," said a small, doubtful voice in the back of her mind. Pushing the thought away, she left the restaurant, calling a quick goodbye to Paolo, who was busy prepping for dinner. The university campus was a 15-minute walk from Bella's Bistro. As Lily approached the sprawling grounds with their mix of old and new buildings, she felt like an imposter. Students lounged on the grass, laughing and talking, while professors hurried past with armfuls of papers. Everyone seemed to belong here in a way she no longer did. The music building was exactly as Dr. Henderson had described it, a grand brick structure with imposing columns at its entrance. Inside, the hallways were lined with practice rooms, the muffled sounds of various instruments creating a chaotic symphony. Piano, violin, trumpet, flute, each behind a closed door, each a reminder of the world she had left behind. Room 214 was at the end of a corridor on the second floor. Lily paused outside, taking a deep breath, then knocked firmly. "Come in," called Dr. Henderson's voice. She entered to find a cluttered but comfortable office. Bookshelves overflowed with music scores and academic texts. Framed concert programs hung on the walls alongside photographs of orchestras and chamber groups. Dr. Henderson sat behind a desk strewn with papers, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. "Lily," he said warmly, standing to greet her. "Thank you for coming. I was half afraid you might change your mind." "I almost did," she admitted with a nervous laugh. "Several times." "Well, I'm glad you didn't," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Please sit. Can I get you some water before we begin?" Lily shook her head. "I'm fine, thanks." Dr. Henderson studied her for a moment, his kind eyes taking in her anxious expression. You know, he said gently, this isn't an exam. There's no pass or fail here. I just want to hear you play. It's been a long time since I played for anyone but myself, Lily said, her voice quieter than she intended. Music is meant to be shared, Dr. Henderson replied. Even when we play alone, we're in conversation with the composer with history. But I understand your nervousness. Let me show you to the practice room where you can warm up. He led her down the hall to a small room containing an upright piano similar to her own, though in much better condition. Take as much time as you need, he said. When you're ready, come back to my office and we'll go to the recital hall. That's where the charity event will be held, so you should get a feel for the space and the instrument there. Alone in the practice room, Lily sat at the piano, flexing her fingers. She played a few scales to get used to the touch of the keys, which responded more easily than her old piano at home. Then she launched into the opening bars of the Rachmaninoff, testing how it felt on this instrument. The sound was clearer, more resonant than what she was used to, and for a moment she felt a surge of joy at the pure beauty of it. This was what she had missed, the quality of sound that only a well-maintained instrument could produce. After 15 minutes, she felt as ready as she would ever be. She returned to Dr. Henderson's office, and together they walked to the recital hall at the heart of the music building. The space was both smaller and larger than Lily had imagined, smaller in the number of seats, perhaps 200, but larger in how vast the stage felt when she stepped onto it. A gleaming black grand piano waited in the center, its lid raised to project the sound. Dr. Henderson took a seat in the middle of the hall. Whenever you're ready, he called, his voice echoing slightly in the empty space. Lily sat at the bench, adjusting its height, then placing her hands on the cool keys. For a terrifying moment, she felt completely blank, as if every note of the piece had fled from her mind. She closed her eyes, took a breath, and waited. Then, as if coming from somewhere outside herself, the music returned. Her fingers found the opening notes, and she began to play. The Rachmaninoff Prelude in G minor was a tempestuous piece, full of dramatic contrasts, thundering chords followed by delicate, haunting melodies. As Lily played, her initial nervousness gave way to something else, the pure focus that came with being fully immersed in the music. She forgot about Dr. Henderson watching her. She forgot about the charity recital, about her years away from performing, about the restaurant where she would return to work tomorrow. There was only the music speaking through her fingers, filling the hall with its passionate story. When she reached the final, powerful chords, she felt a strange sense of loss as the last notes faded into silence. For those 7 minutes she had been completely herself again, not Lily the waitress, but Lily the pianist. She opened her eyes to see Dr. Henderson standing. A look of astonishment on his face. "My dear," he said, his voice hushed. "Where have you been hiding?" Lily gave a small shrug, unsure what to say. He seemed to be searching for words. "That was not what I expected. You played with such maturity, such emotional depth. The technical skill is there, certainly, but it's the interpretation that struck me." "You understand this piece." A warm flush of pride spread through Lily's chest. "Thank you," she said simply. "I don't need to hear anything else," Dr. Henderson continued, climbing the steps to the stage. "If you're willing, the spot in our recital is yours." Lily's heart leapt, then immediately constricted with doubt. "Are you sure? I haven't performed in years, and this is for charity." "You need someone reliable. What I just heard was the playing of a true musician," he said firmly. "Technical skills can get rusty, yes, but musicality, that understanding of what lives within the notes that doesn't fade. You have it. The rest is just practice." The reality of what she was agreeing to suddenly hit Lily. "The recital is in 3 weeks?" 3 weeks from Saturday, he confirmed. "Will that be enough time for you to prepare?" Lily thought about her schedule at the restaurant, about the hours she already spent practicing each day. "I think so," she said cautiously, "but I'd need to make sure it doesn't conflict with my work shifts." "Of course," Dr. Henderson nodded. "The recital begins at 7 p.m. There's a dress rehearsal that morning at 10. Would either of those be a problem?" Lily mentally reviewed her schedule. Saturday nights were busy at the bistro, and Paolo would need all hands on deck. The thought of asking for time off made her stomach tighten. What would she even say? That she needed the night off to play piano in a charity concert? She had never shared that part of herself with anyone at the restaurant. "I'd need to request the evening off," she said slowly. "I've never done that on a Saturday before." If it helps, Dr. Henderson offered, I could speak to your manager. Explain the situation. No, Lily said quickly, then softened her tone. No, thank you. I should be the one to tell him. The professor looked at her curiously. They don't know, do they? About your background in music, Lily shook her head. It never seemed relevant to waiting tables. Well, he said with a gentle smile, perhaps it's time they found out. You might be surprised by their reaction. As they walked back to his office, Dr. Henderson gave her more details about the recital, what to wear, formal concert attire, when to arrive, how the program would be structured. Lily listened carefully, taking mental notes, still not quite believing she had agreed to this. Back in his office, he handed her an official letter confirming her participation in the event. For your manager, he explained. Sometimes it helps to have something in writing. Lily took the envelope, her name printed neatly on the front. Thank you, she said, for the opportunity, and for believing I could do this. The talent was always there, Dr. Henderson replied. I'm just glad I happened to eat lunch at the right restaurant. As Lily walked home, the letter safely tucked in her bag, a mix of emotions swirled within her. Excitement at the thought of performing again. Terror at the same prospect, and looming over everything, the need to tell Paolo and her coworkers about this hidden part of her life. What would they think? Would they see it as a betrayal, that she had kept this secret for so long? Would they think she was putting on airs, trying to be something she wasn't anymore? When she reached her apartment, she went straight to her piano. Tonight's practice session would be different. This was no longer just for herself. She was practicing for an audience, for a real performance. As she played the Rachmaninoff yet again, working through the passages that had felt uncertain in the recital hall, Lily realized something had changed. The piece was no longer just a beautiful collection of notes. It had become a bridge between her past and her future, a chance to reconnect with the part of herself she had been forced to set aside. Whatever happened with the recital, whether she triumphed or failed, at least she had taken this step. For the first time in 3 years, she had allowed herself to be seen as the musician she truly was. The next morning, Lily woke with Dr. Henderson's letter on her nightstand. The reality of what she had committed to washed over her anew. She was going to perform publicly for the first time in years. And first, she needed to tell Paolo. She dressed for her lunch shift slowly, rehearsing what she would say. None of the opening lines she came up with seemed right. How do you tell someone you've worked alongside for 3 years that you've been hiding a major part of yourself the whole time? When she arrived at the bistro, Paolo was in his usual spot in the kitchen, tasting a sauce and making adjustments. Morning, he called, not looking up from his work. We got a big delivery of fresh seafood today. Special's going to be grilled swordfish. Sounds delicious, Lily replied, trying to sound normal despite the nervous flutter in her chest. Paolo, do you have a minute? I need to ask you something. He glanced up, noticing her serious tone. Everything okay? Yes, but... She pulled the envelope from her bag. I need to request Saturday night off in 3 weeks. It's important. Paolo's eyebrows rose. In 3 years, Lily had never asked for a Saturday night off. She was his most reliable weekend server. Hot date? He asked with a small smile. Not exactly. She hesitated, then decided to just say it. I've been invited to play piano in a charity concert at the university. Paolo's wooden spoon paused mid-stir. Play piano, you? Lily nodded, feeling her face grow warm. Before I worked here, I was studying piano performance at the conservatory. I had to leave during my 3rd year when my dad got sick and our family needed money. Paolo set his spoon down, giving her his full attention now. 3 years you've worked for me and you never mentioned you were a pianist? It was painful to talk about, she admitted. Easier to keep it separate. I still play at home, but I haven't performed publicly since I left school. Until now, Paolo said, understanding dawning on his face. That professor who comes in for lunch, he's involved in this, isn't he? Lily nodded. Dr. Henderson teaches at the music department. They needed someone to play a piece I know well. She handed him the letter. It's for a good cause. Music education for kids who can't afford lessons. Paolo read the letter, his expression thoughtful. When he looked up, there was something like wonder in his eyes. All this time, I knew there was something different about you. A depth, this explains it. He handed the letter back. Of course you can have the night off. Relief washed over Lily. Thank you. I know Saturday nights are busy. We'll manage, Paolo interrupted, waving away her concern. This is important. There's just one more thing, Lily said, feeling braver now. I'd need to leave early on the Saturdays before the concert, too. For extra practice, Paolo chuckled. You're pushing it now. Just a couple hours, she pleaded. Miguel could cover the early dinner shift. Fine, Paolo agreed with a good-natured grumble. But you owe me. Maybe you can play at the restaurant sometime. Class the place up a bit. The idea made Lily laugh nervously. Let me get through this concert first. Word spread quickly among the restaurant staff. By lunchtime, everyone knew about Lily's hidden talent. Miguel kept asking if she could play that song from Twilight, while Anna, the hostess, wanted to know if she'd wear a fancy dress for the concert. The attention made Lily uncomfortable at first, but there was also something freeing about not having to keep her musical identity secret anymore. When Dr. Henderson came in for lunch that week, Paolo insisted on coming out of the kitchen to meet him, and the two men talked enthusiastically about the upcoming concert, while Lily served her other tables, her cheeks burning. You never told me you were some kind of piano prodigy, Dr. Henderson's companion said to her as she refilled their water glasses. He was younger than the professor, maybe in his early 30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. I'm Ben, by the way. I teach music theory at the university. I'm not a prodigy, Lily corrected, embarrassed. Just someone who studied piano for a long time. Tom says you're playing Rachmaninoff with barely 3 weeks to prepare, Ben said. That sounds pretty impressive to me. Don't scare her, Ben, Dr. Henderson chided. Lily's just getting comfortable with the idea of performing again. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily fell into a new routine. Work during the day, intense practice at night, and on Saturdays, she would leave the restaurant early to use the practice rooms at the university, which Dr. Henderson had arranged for her. The practice rooms were a luxury compared to her old upright at home. The pianos were well maintained, the acoustics were designed for music, and she could play as loudly as the piece demanded without worrying about disturbing neighbors. Sometimes, as she worked through the more challenging passages of the Rachmaninoff, she would look up to find Ben or Dr. Henderson listening from the doorway. Their presence was both nerve-wracking and encouraging. It had been so long since anyone had heard her play, had cared about her progress, had offered suggestions about interpretation or technique. One evening, after a particularly grueling practice session, Ben walked with her to the bus stop. How does it feel? He asked. Coming back to it after so long? Lily considered the question. Like finding a piece of myself I'd put away, she said finally. Familiar, but also new. My hands remember things my mind has forgotten. Ben nodded. Music gets into our bodies, not just our brains. That's why you can still play so well even after years away. I don't know about so well, Lily sighed. There's this passage in the middle section that I still can't get smooth enough. You're being too hard on yourself, Ben assured her. I've heard you play it. It sounds beautiful. His words stayed with her on the bus ride home, a warm comfort against the chill of her growing nerves. As the concert drew closer, her anxiety increased. What had seemed exciting at first now felt overwhelming. The charity recital was a major event at the university. Important donors would be there. Music critics, people who would know immediately if she wasn't good enough. During her shifts at the restaurant, she found herself making small mistakes, mixing up orders, forgetting to refill drinks, her mind too preoccupied with the upcoming performance. Paolo noticed but said nothing, just gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze when she apologized for dropping a stack of plates. The final week before the concert was the hardest. Lily practiced until her fingers ached, then practiced more. She woke from dreams where she sat at the piano on stage but couldn't remember a single note. Her appetite disappeared. Dark circles formed under her eyes. Dr. Henderson found her in a practice room the Thursday before the concert, her head in her hands. Lily, he said softly, are you all right? She looked up, not bothering to hide her exhaustion. I don't think I can do this. He sat beside her on the piano bench. What's troubling you specifically? Everything, she sighed. I'm not ready. I haven't performed in years. The piano at home is nothing like the grand in the concert hall. Everyone will be watching, waiting for me to fail. Ah, Dr. Henderson said, nodding. You have a classic case of stage fright. Even professional musicians who perform regularly experience it. But they know how to handle it, Lily protested. I don't. Would it help to know that half the audience will be thinking about what they're going to eat after the concert, and the other half will be too busy being impressed by your courage to notice any small mistakes? Despite herself, Lily smiled. That's not very reassuring. Let me tell you something, Dr. Henderson said, his voice gentle but firm. Last week, I heard you play this piece all the way through without a single error. Not just technically correct, but with genuine feeling. You connected with the music in a way that many technically proficient pianists never achieve. That was different, Lily argued. It was just you listening, not a hall full of people. The music doesn't change, he reminded her. Only your awareness of who's hearing it. When you play, try to find that place where it's just you and the composer in conversation. The audience is privileged to overhear that conversation, but they're not part of it. Lily considered his words. I'll try, she promised, though doubt still clouded her mind. The next day, Paolo pulled her aside before the lunch rush. You look terrible, he said bluntly. When was the last time you slept properly? I'm fine, Lily insisted. Just nervous about tomorrow. Paolo crossed his arms. Go home. What? But my shift, Miguel can cover it. You need rest before your big day. Go home, take a hot bath, and get some sleep. But no arguments, Paolo said firmly. Consider it my contribution to the charity event. I'm donating my best waitress's day of rest. Too tired to protest further, Lily thanked him and left. At home, she followed his advice, taking a long bath and then, surprisingly, falling into a deep, dreamless sleep that lasted until evening. When she woke, she felt clearer, calmer. She made herself a proper meal, then sat at her piano. Instead of drilling the difficult passages again and again, she simply played the piece through once, focusing on the emotional journey of the music rather than technical perfection. The next morning, the day of the recital, she attended the dress rehearsal at the concert hall. The other performers were a mix of faculty and advanced students, all of whom greeted her warmly but with curious glances. She was the unknown element in their program, the last-minute replacement with the mysterious background. The rehearsal went smoothly. The grand piano on stage responded beautifully to her touch, its rich tone filling the hall in a way her home piano never could. Dr. Henderson, sitting in the audience, gave her a thumbs up when she finished her run-through. Just like that tonight, he called. Beaming with pride, after the rehearsal, Lily had several hours before she needed to return for the performance. She walked around campus trying to stay calm, then had an early dinner at a small cafe. As she paid her bill, she realized how strange it felt to be the customer, rather than the server. When she returned to the music building, the atmosphere had completely transformed. The lobby was filled with people in formal attire, many holding programs. Ushers directed audience members to their seats. Behind the scenes, performers adjusted bow ties and tuned instruments. Someone had placed a handwritten name card on the door of a small dressing room, L. Alvarez. Inside, Lily changed into the dress she had splurged on for the occasion, a simple but elegant black gown that she hoped looked professional enough for a classical concert. A knock came at the door. 10 minutes to places, called a student volunteer. Lily took a deep breath, checking her reflection one last time. The woman who looked back at her seemed both familiar and strange. Still Lily, but Lily as she might have been if life had followed a different path. As she made her way to the backstage area, she heard the growing buzz of the audience. Peeking through the curtain, she scanned the crowd and froze. There, in the 5th row, sat Paolo, Miguel, Ana, and several other staff members from the bistro, all dressed in their Sunday best. Paolo caught her eye and gave her an encouraging nod. They had come to support her. The realization brought unexpected tears to her eyes, which she quickly blinked away. The concert began. From backstage, Lily listened as the other performers played their pieces. Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, each met with enthusiastic applause. Her nervousness returned as her time drew closer, her hands growing cold despite the warmth backstage. Remember, came Ben's voice beside her, making her jump. It's just a conversation between you and Rachmaninoff. We're just lucky enough to listen in. She gave him a grateful smile. Then the performer before her was taking his bow, and the stage manager was gesturing for her to get ready. And now, came the announcer's voice, performing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. We are pleased to welcome Lily Alvarez. As she walked onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinded her. The applause seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. She made her way to the piano, adjusted the bench, and sat down. In that moment, facing the rows of expectant faces, Lily felt a sudden clarity. 3 years ago, she had been forced to leave her music education behind, but she had never truly left the music. It had been with her all along, through every shift at the restaurant, every tired evening, every moment of doubt. She placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor filled the concert hall. Lily's fingers moved with a confidence that surprised even her, drawing rich, resonant tones from the magnificent grand piano. The weeks of practice, the years of training before that, all emerged through her touch on the keys. For the opening measures, she remained acutely aware of the audience, the weight of their attention, the occasional cough or shift in the seats. But as the music progressed, something remarkable happened. The world beyond the piano began to fade. The spotlight no longer felt harsh, but instead created a cocoon of light around her and the instrument. The hundreds of eyes watching became less important than the conversation she was having with the music. This was what Dr. Henderson had meant. This feeling of being fully present with the piece, of channeling Rachmaninoff's intentions through her own understanding and emotion. The prelude built in intensity, the left-hand chords growing more thunderous while the right hand wove a haunting melody above them. Lily leaned into the dynamics, allowing the music to surge and recede like waves. The middle section, the passage she had struggled with during practice, flowed from her fingers with unexpected ease. In this moment, on this piano under these lights, she found a clarity that had eluded her in the practice rooms. As she approached the climax of the piece, Lily felt a powerful emotion rising within her. Not nervousness now, but a kind of joy mingled with sweet sorrow. Joy at reconnecting with this part of herself. Sorrow for the years spent hiding her gift. The music seemed to express exactly what she felt, as if Rachmaninoff had somehow known what this moment would mean to her. A waitress playing on a concert stage after years of silence. The final chords rang out, powerful and resolute. Lily held the last note, letting it resonate through the hall until it gradually faded into silence. For a moment, neither she nor the audience moved, caught in the spell of the music's conclusion. Then came the applause. It started slowly, almost tentatively, then grew in volume and enthusiasm until it seemed to surround her completely. Lily opened her eyes, not realizing she had closed them during the final moments of the piece. The faces before her were no longer intimidating strangers, but people moved by what they had heard. In the 5th row, Paolo was on his feet, clapping wildly, his usual gruff demeanor replaced by unrestrained pride. She stood and bowed, the way she had been taught years ago at the conservatory. As she straightened, she caught Dr. Henderson's eye in the front row. He was applauding vigorously, his expression a mix of vindication and delight, as if to say, "See? This is who you really are." The applause continued, showing no signs of fading. Lily bowed a second time, her cheeks flushing with the unexpected warmth of the reception. Had she really played that well? Or was the audience responding to something beyond technical skill? Perhaps the palpable emotion she had poured into the performance. When she finally left the stage, her legs felt wobbly, as if she had run a great distance. Backstage, several of the other performers congratulated her, some with genuine admiration, others with a hint of surprise that suggested they had expected less from this unknown addition to their program. "That was magnificent," Ben said, appearing at her side with a glass of water. "You had the entire audience in the palm of your hand." It felt... Lily paused, searching for the right words as she sipped the water gratefully. It felt like coming home. The rest of the concert passed in a blur. Lily remained backstage listening to the final performers, her body still humming with the after effects of adrenaline. When the last musician had taken their bow and the audience's final applause had faded, the performers gathered for a group acknowledgement. Walking back onto the stage as part of this group, Lily felt a curious blend of belonging and separation. These were her people, in a sense, fellow musicians who understood the language of notes and phrases that had been so important to her life. Yet she had been away so long, had built a different life in the interim. After the concert, a small reception was held in the lobby. Donors mingled with performers, champagne flutes in hand, discussing the music and the cause it supported. Lily found herself surrounded by well-wishers, many asking where she regularly performed. "I don't. she admitted to one elderly patron who seemed particularly impressed by her playing. I work as a waitress, actually. A waitress? The woman repeated, her eyebrows rising. My dear, with talent like yours, that's a terrible waste. Before Lily could respond, a familiar voice cut in. No job that supports honest work and passion is a waste. It was Paolo who had made his way through the crowd to her side. The rest of the bistro staff followed, Anna clutching a small bouquet of flowers that she thrust into Lily's hands. These are for you, she said shyly. You were amazing. We had no idea, Miguel added, shaking his head in disbelief. All this time serving pasta and you can play like that? Lily laughed, touched by their support and the simple bouquet. Thank you all for coming. It means so much that you're here. We wouldn't have missed it, Paolo said firmly, though I'm still mad you kept this hidden from us for 3 years. As her restaurant family chatted excitedly around her, Lily noticed a man in an expensive suit approaching with Dr. Henderson. The professor's face was alight with a barely contained excitement. Lily, I'd like you to meet Richard Thornton, he said. He's the director of the community music school associated with the university. Richard Thornton, a tall man with silver hair and keen eyes, extended his hand. Dr. Henderson has told me about your unusual situation. Your performance tonight was exceptional, especially considering your time away from formal study. Thank you, Lily said, suddenly feeling self-conscious under his appraising gaze. Our school is expanding its piano department, he continued. We're looking for instructors who can work with students of all ages and abilities. Based on what I heard tonight, I believe you have both the technical skill and the emotional intelligence needed for teaching. Would you be interested in discussing a position with us? Lily stared at him, certain she had misheard. A teaching position? But I never finished my degree. Experience and talent matter more to us than formal credentials, Richard assured her. And you clearly have both. It would be part-time to start. Perhaps 3 evenings a week and Saturday mornings. The pay is modest, but it would allow you to share your gift with others. Before Lily could respond, another man and woman stepped forward. She recognized them vaguely as regular customers from the bistro, a couple who often came in for Sunday brunch. Ms. Alvarez, the man said. We own the Blue Note downtown. The jazz club, Lily said, placing them now. You always order the eggs Benedict and French toast to share, the woman smiled. You remember. We had no idea you were so talented. We feature a pianist in our lounge area 3 nights a week. Our regular performer is moving to Seattle next month. Would you be interested in taking over the spot? It pays well and our clientele appreciates quality music. Lily looked from Richard Thornton to the club owners, then to Paolo and her co-workers, and finally to Dr. Henderson, whose expression suggested he was thoroughly enjoying this turn of events. She began, feeling overwhelmed by the sudden opportunities. You don't have to answer right away, Richard said kindly. Think about it. Here's my card. Mine too, said the jazz club owner, pressing his own business card into her hand. As the reception continued around her, Lily found a quiet corner to catch her breath. Ben appeared with 2 glasses of champagne, offering her one. Quite a night for you, he observed with a smile. How does it feel to be discovered? Lily took a sip of champagne, the bubbles dancing on her tongue. Unreal, she admitted. An hour ago I was just a waitress who used to play piano. Now people are offering me jobs as a musician. You were never just anything, Ben said quietly. You were always both a good waitress and a gifted pianist. The only difference is now other people can see all of you. His words struck her deeply. For 3 years she had kept these parts of herself separate, as if they couldn't coexist. But tonight had proved otherwise. Paolo approached, having overheard their conversation. So, he said, crossing his arms, are you quitting the bistro to become a fancy piano teacher? I don't know, Lily answered honestly. It's all happening so fast. Paolo's gruff expression softened. Whatever you decide, your job is safe. Maybe we can work out a schedule that lets you do both for a while. See how it goes. Tears pricked at Lily's eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. Thank you, she whispered. Later that night, after the reception had ended and the concert hall had emptied, Lily found herself alone on the stage once more. The cleaning staff had allowed her a few minutes at the piano before they needed to close up. She sat at the bench, running her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them down. Tonight had changed everything, yet in another sense, it had simply revealed what was always there beneath the surface. her identity as a musician, too essential to truly be left behind. Would she take the teaching position? Or the jazz club gig, or both? Would she keep working at Bella's Bistro at least part-time? The future suddenly held possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to imagine for years. Lily played a few quiet chords, enjoying the resonance of the grand piano in the empty hall. Whatever she decided, she knew one thing for certain: she would no longer hide this part of herself. The music had been patient, waiting for her to find her way back, and now it would remain a visible, vital part of her life. 6 months later, a small sign appeared on the upright piano that Paolo had installed in the corner of Bella's Bistro. Live piano music, Friday and Saturday evenings, performed by Lily Alvarez. Lily still worked lunch shifts 3 days a week, taught piano students on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at the community music school, and played Tuesday nights at the Blue Note. Her schedule was full, her life a careful balance of her various roles. But Friday and Saturday nights belonged to Bella's, where regular customers now requested both their favorite dishes and their favorite songs. Paolo had raised her hourly wage for these evenings. "Your entertainment now, not just service," he had insisted, and the tip jar on the piano often filled twice over during her performances. On this particular Saturday, as Lily finished a light, playful rendition of a Gershwin piece, she glanced around the restaurant. Dr. Henderson sat at his usual table, now a dinner regular rather than a lunch one, grading papers while he enjoyed Paolo's latest special. Ben was at the bar, having become both a friend and a weekly visitor to the bistro. At the large table near the window, Richard Thornton dined with several other faculty members from the music school, all of whom had become supporters of her unusual career path, and moving between the tables, serving food with the same grace Lily had once shown, was a young man who had recently mentioned his background in dance, his dreams of Broadway temporarily on hold while he sorted out student loans and family obligations. Lily caught his eye and smiled encouragingly. Perhaps lightning could strike twice at Bella's Bistro. Perhaps another hidden talent was just waiting for its moment to step into the spotlight. For now, though, she turned back to the piano, her fingers finding the opening notes of the Rachmaninoff prelude that had changed her life. As the familiar music filled the restaurant, Lily played not with the formal precision of a concert performance, but with the relaxed confidence of someone who had finally found her place, or rather, places, in the world. The waitress who had stolen the spotlight had discovered something important. Sometimes life's most beautiful melodies emerge not from following a single path, but from finding the harmony between different parts of ourselves.